All right, good morning. It's showtime, everybody. And this is Lions Talk Live. I want to thank you all for making this a part of your day. And here we are, Friday, just a couple days before the Lions take on the Carolina Panthers. And I think it's safe to say will be a little bit of a revenge match for most of the Lions fans, players, things of that sort because of what happened last year. And let's face it, Lions went down there and laid a dud, kept them out of the playoffs. And what do you know? Now Carolina's got to come to town. Before we get into Lions Talk Live, noise, you guys probably all know we got a few bills to pay. So here we go. Here's the spiel. If you haven't yet subscribed to Lions Talk Live, I hope you would consider doing so. Trying to make a push to get as close to 3,500 by kickoff, and that's no easy task in 72 hours. So if you haven't yet subscribed to Lions Talk Live, I'm hoping you will consider doing so. Also, while you're watching the show, if you enjoy it, don't be afraid to hit that like button. And now, if you are looking to buy or sell property, whether it be a commercial property, vacant land, whatever it may be, rental property, a personal property for you, a secondary property. I have worked in the state of Michigan as a realtor for the better part of 30 years. And if you would like to see if I can save you some money, maybe either on the sale of your property or the purchase of property, don't be afraid to give me a call or shoot me a text, 269-998-2384. All right, now let's get back from that into today's show. Michael, hey, happy for you too. Have a great Friday, and let's see. Lions, you're saying we're going to win in a little bit of a landslide as far as the NFL goes, 37-16. Burrs, good morning to you as always. All right, now let's start off by analyzing the Lions offense versus the Panthers defense. Let's start off with the Panthers. So they do actually have a decent, I'd say, secondary. I'm going to include the linebackers with that. The problem for them is their up front line, their defensive line. It just doesn't match up well, I think, with the Lions' offensive line, especially. I think if you watched any kind of film on the Carolina Panthers, their biggest problem is their interior line, and that extends to their ends. Their interior line just doesn't get much push. If you watch often, their front tackles, when they go to jam and press in great contact with the offensive line, especially on run plays, you watch their shoulders and their hips, they're getting pushed backwards and away. And then from a leverage standpoint, that's just not good for anybody if you're on the defensive line. They really need to be able to get their hands placed and then move people left to right or even down. That's not happening currently. So with that being said, the Lions, who have one of the NFL's best rushing attacks, I think it's a safe bet that they'll have a pretty good day, at least on paper, against this Carolina team. Now, when you also look at stats, sometimes they can be misleading. If you watch and read up on the Carolina Panthers, a lot of their stats suggest that their secondary is one of the best in the NFL. And while from a statistical standpoint, that's true, let's also analyze why. When you're getting gouged on the ground all the time, nobody's throwing on you. Now, they do have some players out there, and I'm sure if you watched last week's game against Minnesota, you're aware of the interceptions and the returns and things of that sort. So it's not like they don't have skilled players out there, but they're also having skilled players that don't face fire very often because everybody's running on them. So it's food for you to consider. All right, so we got a couple comments up here. After watching Brent, after watching some tape on Carolina, looks like they will need an OC, an offensive coordinator. Lions by 20, you got 37-17. Chad, what do you got? Wife and I will be hitting you up when we are ready to buy some property for sure. Appreciate that, man. Yeah, let's see if I can help you save some cash. All right, Grit, good morning. Good morning to you. Mr. Nico, who do you see the Lions trying to pick up by the trade deadline? Maybe a Mountain Dew. May the Mountain Dew be with you. Thank you for that. Actually, I'm going to do a video today about that because last night, I was almost asleep. It was probably around like 11:30. I did get some text from one of my former journalistic colleagues who now works in a particular town covering that team about Lions. He thinks have made some overtures to that team about a potential defensive player, and it is a defensive tackle. So I'll put that in a video later. I'm going to try to keep some stuff in, not give everything in one show, but you guys know how it goes. So, all right. Well, Mr. Nico, I guess in short, I do believe the Lions are going to, the longer they win, I know we talked about this a little bit yesterday's show, the longer they win and stay relevant in the not just the North race, but the NFC overall, there's just such a fine line after San Francisco, in my opinion. There's just such a fine line between team number 2 in the NFC and team number 10. I don't think there's a huge difference throughout most of the teams. Some differences, sure, but I think it'll be, as long as all those teams stay in the race, you're going to see an active push into the trade deadline, not just by Detroit, but by a few teams to try to position themselves for the playoffs. And, the longer we get into this, the closer we get to that trade deadline, most teams are going to have a little bit better idea. Do we have a shot at the number 1 seed, 2 seed, whatever it may be? And they're going to calculate that into the formula. Hey, if we do this the rest of the year, we're going to end up this side of the bracket, 49ers, that side. I mean, you get the idea. All right, Gage, what do you got? Is this the game Gibbs finally is unleashed? I would say it's a strong possibility, but I would say let's temper that and say I think every game he should be getting a little bit more. His biggest problem is just Montgomery's playing so well. It's not like, say we're like with Campbell. Jack, I think, is playing very well as a rookie linebacker, but Derek Barnes and Saloni, and you can even say Rodriguez, are simply playing well enough to take snaps away from Campbell. Gibbs in the same boat. D-Money is playing very, very well. So because of that, he's taking reps away. When he was out, I thought Gibbs did pretty well outside the first quarter. And, I won't keep beating you guys up with that conversation, but I think you get the idea. Sorry. Phone is jingling early this morning. All right, and I'll check it later and see if it's any kind of news about the Lions. All right, hey, good morning. Hope the Lions defense can stop the runs, unlike last year. Yeah, and I'm going to imagine that is priority number 1, why they've constructed the defensive line the way they have this year. You guys all know, I think James Houston is great. And yes, he's out right now with an injury. But I think Houston overall is a better player than Harris. But Harris is starting because he can play the run a whole lot better than what Houston can. So it's my anticipation, unless Bryce Young just destroys them running out of the pocket as a quarterback, that the Lions should be in a pretty good spot to control both lines of scrimmages. But that's also why they play the game. I mean, nobody anticipated the Arizona Cardinals were going to beat up on the Dallas Cowboys. So things do happen. All right, Chad, what you got? You got Lions 28-10. Yeah, I'd say that's about correct. Salute, Lions Talk Live. Thank you. Thank you very much for that. Yeah, hope you're enjoying the show. Renee K. Chad, how many do you think we got on the ground this week? I would say as far as rushing yards, I could see us making a move to the 150 to 200 range. As far as touchdowns, 2 to 3, maybe a real outside chance at 4. Don, what do you got? Bears think they are winning the division after last night. Not happening. I won't bore you guys because this is obviously Detroit Lions talk, not Bears talk. But the one thing I would say that defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn's going to have to pay attention to is he loves, like a lot of teams, to play single high safety. And the Bears destroyed that from the Commanders. Commanders were forced out of that coverage. They wanted to keep extra people in the box, I'm sure, to try to contain Justin Fields, the shorter passing game. But give the Bears credit. They hit a ton of 9 routes early in the game and took them out of that coverage by halftime. So, I mean, you got to make adjustments. I thought Washington was almost a little standoffish in the fact that, okay, Fields beat it early in the game. The second drive, he beat it again. He still didn't make a change. And then a third time. And to me, that's bad coaching. I mean, somebody's lit you up once. Okay, it happens. The second drive, when they're lighting you up on the same patterns and routes again, that's a problem. And the fact that you let them do it 3 straight drives, coaching problem, I would say. Brent, what do you got? Fields doesn't look too bad last night. No, and think about this. He didn't look too bad last night, and he's now got 8 touchdown passes in 2 games. So say what you want. He might be saying the coaching staff's making him look robotic, but he's in some rare air there. That doesn't happen that often where you get 4 TD pass games in 2 straight games. With that being said, we'll see what happens when they play Detroit. Bergs, let's just keep doing what we have been doing. Don't let this be a trap game. take each game one by one. I would agree. The one advantage, because I know somebody in the chat earlier this week brought it up where they asked if they thought this would be a trap game, and I don't think so. Just because this team from a personnel standpoint hasn't changed exponentially from last year. Most of those guys probably are still incredibly aware of what happened to them in Carolina last year. So athletes, I rank them up there with actors. They have such egos, such inner self circle that they are going to come out and probably want to make a statement and say, yeah, you got us last year, but that was the asterisk or whatever you want to say. I think this team's going to come out looking to put one on Carolina. I hope I'm right, because if they mess up 2 years in a row, that's a problem. And it starts at the top with coaching, comes all the way down to the players. So let's see. All right, Renike, what do you got? Do you think we will make a trade for a defensive end or wide receiver by the trade deadline? Yes. Now, will it be both of them? Who knows? I think for the receiver room now, with Jameson Williams back, I think that kind of probably slides down a little bit on the priority line. But then again, if you can get a big target receiver, somebody that now, if you got Jameson Williams, whoever you just traded for, and St. Brown out there, it's not like Josh Reynolds or Khalif Raymond have not performed well, but they do have deficiencies. There's a reason why they're not primary receivers. So if we can add somebody that is more of a heavyweight, I guess you could say, I could see that happening. All right, Brent. Yes, I do have an update. I was going to get to the banners, but since you asked, St. Brown, he didn't practice again. I'm sure you guys all know yesterday, or at least, not on the field. He went through stuff with trainers. I'm anticipating he's going to be playing unless there's a real setback today. And, today will be the real tell. If they're not even limited practice today, then yeah, they're not playing Sunday unless, situations should arise where the depth is depleted in other spots where they're now going to have to play. But, St. Brown has got a little bit of a luxury here because he's so good at what he does and has such a rapport with Goff. I don't really think he needs a bunch of the reps. Sorry, I had a fly go by me. So I think he's going to be okay, even if they come to Sunday and say, hey, you good to go? And he says yes, then they're probably putting him out there. Now with Branch, though, that's a little bit different story. He's still a rookie. I get we're already crowning him and wanting to put him on top of a statue in front of Ford Field, but he's only 4 games in, and a lot of the adjustments, and especially that happened during the week in an NFL practice with the team, he will not have been around for that. So it would be my guess that he's probably not playing, and Will Harris is taking that spot. I know a lot of us aren't the biggest Will Harris fan. Well, that being said, if you believe in the coaching staff, they clearly believe in Will Harris. So, that's probably who's taking that spot. So I do anticipate St. Brown in, Branch out. All right, Jim, what you got? Let's not let's not have this be a trap game. I agree. And again, I'm thinking we should be okay. Just because we lost last year to them, I'm guessing we're going to come out, ready to put them through the bottom of Ford Field. Don, is Levi Onwuzurike making a difference to you at all? 22 sacks, doesn't seem to tell. A DT story. I'll say this. He was a great preseason story. Anybody who's had a back injury, really any kind of injury, I think was rooting for this kid. But when's the last time you even seen him on the field, really? When's the last time you heard him make a play? Beat a block, string out a run to the sideline. Anything. And spoiler alert, I think if what I heard last night from my buddy, the Lions are probably looking to make a move to upgrade a little bit of depth across the defensive line. And I think it's just going to come down to asking price. You guys already know last week when we were playing in Green Bay, I got some reports from a few colleagues of mine that basically, long story short, Brad Holmes was on the phone during that game against the Packers, making some calls to a couple different teams and having conversations with them. I don't think anything's going to happen this week. I don't think it's going to happen next week. I do think it's going to happen before the trade deadline. Like I said, the longer we stay relevant in the NFC, we're going to be looking to pick up some parts. Ms. Nico, thoughts on how much J-Mo will be involved in the Panthers game? I initially thought earlier this week, maybe like 10, 15 snaps. So, a couple plays, 3 or 4 different drives. I think that might be changing though. If St. Brown for some reason is limited or just can't go, I think J-Mo is going to get a wee bit more. And does that mean instead of 10 to 15, 15 to 20? Yeah. But if you figure Lions will realistically get 7 to 8 drives in the game, that's about right. Then you're looking at him getting maybe 3 to 4 plays per drive, roughly. I mean, it's early, so don't hold me to my math, but you get the point. He'll probably be out there sooner versus later. All right, Jack, what do you got? How is Vaitai coming along? I think he plays this week. I do. He's been limited, but there's been no setbacks. From what I know from the medical reports, there's no additional swelling occurring. So I don't think, really at some point, you're an NFL player, you're going to be beat up physically one way or the other until the season's over. He's probably playing. Now, with that being said, second half, fourth quarter, whatever it may be, if the game's out of reach, are they probably trying to get him out there a little bit sooner onto the sideline and let Glasgow or Scoresdale or however you say his name out on the field? Yeah, that's probably also true. And same with St. Brown. The game starts getting out of hand, and it's in a safer portion of the game where from a clock standpoint, you can control the game. You'll probably see a couple of those guys get off the field sooner versus later. So, all right, got your questions done. So let's go back to Lions offense versus Panthers defense. Like I was saying, I think the Panthers do have a nice secondary, but a lot of that is from a statistical standpoint, the fact that everybody's running on them and running fairly well on them. So I think those numbers kind of help each other out. I am going to say this real quick. Oops, sorry about the Lions offense and defense. I'm looking for Goff to have a game here. I'm looking for it from a selfish standpoint. I get we're going to be able to run on them, but I want to see Goff go out there and just light him up. This is a perfect game for him to really unleash the play action pass, which I'm sure all of you know is among his strengths. There's been conversations, whether you watch this show, that show, whatever show it may be, that Goff is a borderline top 5 NFL quarterback. All right? Do it this weekend. In a game that you should win comfortably, I want to see you make this look easy. If he does that, then yeah, I think he really has matured. The kid's 28 years old, and I get when he got ran out of LA, he was 25, 24, somewhere in that vicinity. That's the one problem I kind of had with what happened with him in LA is, you took him to a Super Bowl, you had some playoff wins. Heck, you won one playoff game the year before you got traded, where you were the third string quarterback with a broken throwing hand or a thumb on your throwing hand, or whatever it was. And he came out and still won the game for him because they were in desperation mode. 23, 24 years old, he's doing that. Should only get better. And if you look at him nowadays, I would say, yeah, he's gotten pretty good. Probably a lot of the mental aspects of the game and the media and all that stuff, the fan hate and all that stuff, that would affect most of us at those ages. He does seem like he's gotten beyond that nowadays. It no longer bothers him. It probably got to him, the trade so much that it forced him mentally to grow up and kind of say, you know what, love me or hate me, I'm just going to go out here and do my thing. And I want to say this weekend, he needs to have a great game. If he does that, I think unless something really changes the rest of the year, he's our quarterback for the long term, not the short term. All right, see a few more questions have popped up here. Hold on a second, guys. All right. Okay, Coach. Give us a good speculation news, a name or two that we're all ears. You're going to have to wait for that video later today. But I will say this to you, Don. The one I got last night, I get last week the conversations about, the Titans and everybody else, that the Steelers, the trades. I think that's Brad Holmes kicking, some tires on a car, seeing where the interest lies with those particular teams. The one I got last night, I think there's some legitimacy to it. And it makes sense to me because it's a defensive player that plays up front that would make an immediate impact. That would probably be a sign that the Levi Onwuzurike hope has diminished. That Bugs is going to be here probably for a bit, but more as a rotational piece, and that the Lions are legitimately making a push for the NFC, not the NFC North. So we'll you have to wait till probably around noon or so for me to get that out. All right, what do we got here? Jack, I'm not scared of Carolina. Don't want the Lions to estimate them. Yeah, I agree. And I do think last year they probably got a little full of themselves. I mean, who won it? You won, a bunch of games in a row. You're basically on an emotional high from going from 1-6 to wherever they were at that point. You're seeing the playoffs just in the not so distant future. You ran into a Carolina team that you didn't think was that great, and you probably got a wake-up call that I don't care if you're 0-16. These are still NFL players, and a game as physical as this, and you don't want that to happen again. Ryan, like that thumb. Yes, if you guys haven't yet hit the like button, please consider doing so. All right, what do we got? Fellow Lions fan, please continue to be patient. Yep. And I think we're going to keep developing. What's up with James Mitchell? Glidden, what do you got here? Is Laporta just outshining him? I haven't seen him in over right much. And that's a great question. And I want to say somebody brought this up last week, and I don't have an answer. This kid has a bunch of hype. I thought with the way he performed last year, yeah, he'd be making some impacts. But the other side of that is Laporta has been lights out. I mean, raise your hand if you think Laporta should come off the field ever. And I'm just like, Laporta is playing at such a rare pace. We talked about it yesterday. I talked about last week. To me, the reason why he's on the field so much isn't just his route running. It's his run blocking. And you guys have heard me talk about the thumb placement, the hand placements, how he's able to use his elbows to get leverage and maneuver defenders around, all that stuff. I mean, just so many of the little technique differences that you really shouldn't be seeing out of a rookie, especially a rookie not even a quarter way through his first season. But, I mean, this kid, I think, man, if he continues this up, we're going to be putting him in the Lions Hall of Fame sooner versus later. I mean, the Lions really do appear, and again, I want to temper it because we're not even halfway through their rookie years, but Branch and Laporta are just absolute home runs. And when they will do the redraft in a season or two on, Fox Sports or CBS Sports, whatever, when they do those annual redrafts from a couple years ago, I don't know how these two aren't in the top 10. I mean, can you guys honestly think of 8 players that were in this year's draft, regardless of round that they were drafted in, that are better than these guys? There'll be a few that you could argue, but can you think of 8? That's my question to you. T, what do you got? Let Jameson and Jabari ease to the second half of the season. Yeah, and I think they probably will. I mean, like I kind of already talked about, both these guys I think are good players. It's just there's other players that are good around them. Where Branch, let's be honest, that secondary, I mean, could use some help. So because there isn't a whole lot of competition there, he's getting more and more reps right away. Same with Laporta. I mean, it's nothing against the tight ends that were there. It's just he is way ahead of everybody else there. And I think that you're 100% right. Jameson and Gibbs, they've got other players around them. All right, Jack, Lions way better than them, but they're going to be hungry for a win. Yep. Nobody wants to be 0 for whatever. And, yeah, you got to imagine they're going to try to upset us. All right, Frank, wounded animals are dangerous. Look what the Bears just did. I agree. And Lions need to take them seriously. If they don't, to me, you'll know it in the first 2 drives. Panthers on an offense, especially the first drive, they come to right down the field and score. It's a game. And that's not good. If they do it on the second drive of the game as well, it means we didn't have adjustments ready for them. We didn't see stuff in the first drive that we say, okay, now we're going to take away. And you heard me already talk about it with the Commanders last night. To me, that was just being stubborn. You kept using single high safety. And what did Justin Fields and the Bears do? 9 routes, fly routes, deep post routes, sideline routes. And they just destroy that. And the fact that you let them do it on 3 straight drives, it just means you're just too stubborn to make an adjustment, or you're just too idiotic to be able to say, hey, he can't do it again. He can't do it again. I'm guessing Ron Rivera had to come over and say, hey, I don't care what the situation is, change that D. And they did in the second half, but it was kind of too little too late. James, any up-to-date that's on James Houston? The last I got would have been Monday or Tuesday of this week, and he's healing fine. It's going to take time. He's still probably, a month, 5 weeks or so from returning, and then it'll probably be a little limited because it will still be tender, but it'll come down to pain tolerance at this point. But the good part is, he's going to come back. You're going to have a month, 2 months left in the season, so really by the playoffs or the end of the season push to where we're going to finish in the NFC North and the NFC, he'll be fine for. That would be my take. T, didn't want to say it, but with the right coaching and a healthy roster, the Lions will be very dangerous come playoff time. Very dangerous. I agree. Assuming that we don't have a rash of other injuries between now and the start of the playoffs, you should have most of your pieces back. Everybody's going to be beat up, but that's going to be true in the NFL. You get to that point in the year. I just think, man, the Lions, if they can get the right seed and the right matchups, especially for that first round game, this could be a team that makes a real run. And you guys already seen my video that I think will make the Super Bowl in 2024. But with, spoiler alert, this year's Super Bowl is played in 2024. Yes, that's correct. All right, Don. Frank, a wounded animal is dangerous, but a healthy animal is hungry. Is even more dangerous. Eat what's there. I agree. All right, getting back to the video. Panthers offense versus Lions defense. So let's just use the last 2 weeks. Obviously, we've been Blitzburg, the Silver Rush, whatever you want to call us. We've been able to get after quarterbacks and get them down and confuse them heavily. Give Aaron Glenn some credit. He has diversified the defensive front. He's put in different packages. I know we were talking about it in a show earlier this week. He's used a lot more stunts, not just with the interior line, but also interior to the outside, to the rush ends, and that's made a big difference. You've confused more offensive lines. You've done your due diligence. You've made it harder on less experienced quarterbacks to know what's happening. And I gotta say this: you've got a quarterback who's struggling with a lot of his reads, his quick release and outs. He's radar locked for the most part on his first reads. He has not been able to progress from route tree, read 1, 2, 3, etc. And part of that is the kid doesn't have a lot of time. The Lions need to say, hey, we're going after you on every snap. We are going to put you through that Ford Field turf because you rattle him early and often. You get some hits on him. That ball starts coming out soon. He starts second guessing. And then if you can mix up the secondary coverage, sometimes the backers are dropping, sometimes they're not, sometimes man, zone. You guys get the idea. I think you'll have a field day with him, but doesn't matter what I think. You got to go out there and do it. So we'll see what shakes out. As far as their offense, I do get the Panthers are getting a little bit more healthy. One of their offensive line, one of their better offensive linemen are coming back. But if he plays this weekend, that's still going to be his first game in a year since he tore his ACL. Getting your timing back, getting your trust back in that knee, all that comes into play, especially a physical game like football against a team that up front, like the Lions, that are coming after you. I would expect he's going to go through some growing pains this weekend, just like I anticipate all their offense. But maybe Frank Reich comes up with something, a play or two catches us off guard, keeps them in the game, because the longer they stay in the game with any team, the longer you believe you can win it. So my best advice, you get a chance to put them down early, you do it. You get them down, 10, 15, 17, 18. And the start of the third quarter, the Lions have a bad streak of starting out slowly in the third quarters the last couple of weeks. They need to end that this week. Whatever gadget plays you got to do, Ben Johnson needs to establish that start of the third quarter, we're not falling into a lull. We're putting you to sleep. And putting the other team to sleep because we're scoring so many points. All right, great. What you got? NFC East and West play each other this year. It should have it leave us a clear shot at the number 2 overall. San Fran will likely have number 1. I concur. I agree. So, maybe somebody can trip up San Fran once or twice, but if we can somehow get number 1, then that'd be great. But I think realistically speaking, we're going to be playing for number 2 or number 3. And if we can get number 2, that's great. Number 3, it is what it is. Brent, who do we put on Shark Sutton? I think it's going to be a mixture. I'm guessing because we're playing a rookie quarterback, you might see a little bit more zone out of us, making him throw it into windows. I mean, not that you couldn't play man, because I know that's what Glenn likes to do. But I think if you want to confuse the rookie quarterback, especially on timing a lot early in the game, I'm anticipating that they'll play more zone. If Shark plays, I mean, yeah, probably Sutton. Although Jerry Jacobs, I think, could handle a beat-up Shark. It's not like I don't like Shark. It's just I don't think he's the elite receiver that would give Jacobs a ton of issues. Jay Mami, I have a feeling that Young is going to have a rough day. Thinking about 6 sacks and a couple of turnovers. I'm thinking you could be right because, again, I think we're going to mix up our coverages and really get after him, put him on the floor a few times. That ball starts coming out a little bit sooner, especially against the zone. If that ball doesn't come out right, you're throwing into a defender facing you, not somebody going sideline to sideline, keeping up with crossing routes, etc. All right, and I'm going to kill that name. Sorry, man. Anam, Panthers have a lot of former Lions coaches. They will know our offensive tendencies. Watch out for an early jumped route. Yeah, and that could happen. But the other part of it is the Lions coaching staff probably is aware they know some of the stuff. So it'll be a real chess game for sure. You'll see a lot of him and Han back and forth between both teams. All right, let's see what else we got here. Kind of already talked about JMO, what I'm expecting, but I was expecting 10 to 15 snaps. I'm expecting probably more like 15 to 20, 25 because St. Brown may be somewhat limited if he plays. Injury updates we already talked about. So, I'd say that probably does it. My official prediction, I'm going to go with Lions 31, Panthers 17. I think Detroit wins by, about 14 points. I will say this, if you weren't here earlier, I'm going to put out a video a little bit later today, probably around noon, once I have a little bit of time to talk with a couple of people. But I do think the Lions are making a legitimate push for a defensive player. And I don't think this time, like last week, they're just kicking tires. I think they're in some negotiations for him. With that being said, just like the preseason, I'm going to remind everybody, just because Brad Holmes talks to somebody doesn't mean the trade's going to happen. It means he's trying to get player A at a price or a value proposition that he thinks is ideal for the Detroit Lions. He's not the type of person I think is going to make an emotional or rational choice and overpay. But with that being said, it seems clear between this conversation, one in the preseason, and then the Packers game, talking to a couple different teams during it, he feels this team needs a little bit more interior defensive line help, and I think he's doing what he can to acquire that talent before we get into the home stretch of the NFL season and push for the NFC North and the playoffs, etc. So, all right, a few more comments coming in. Hold on. Where are we? All right, Brett, great predictions. Thank you. T, thanks, bro. Like and share, please. Yeah, thank you. If you guys can, like, share, subscribe, all that stuff really helps. Bergs, all right, you got Lions by 10, 27-17. Don, all right. If Detroit wins, we go to 4-1. That's huge. Yeah, if we can get this one and then get next week against Tampa Bay. Yeah, we'll be setting up pretty good, I would say. Bergs, please like and share, people. Please do. Yeah, you guys help me out here. All right, Don, win we win. Yes, I agree. I believe we will win this weekend. James, all right, we got 34-13. Agreed, Don. All right, I'll go with that too. Where else we at here? And then J Mommy, the Lions know the coaches are there and going to have them second guessing. They line up the same way for several different plays. Yeah, that's one thing I will give Ben Johnson credit for. If you guys watch a lot of his formations, there's a ton of plays that mirror each other. So that does make it harder on the defense. There's less easy tells what the play is. And that's one problem I had with some of our prior coaches is that, really from a schematic standpoint, you saw certain personnel groups, you probably had a pretty good idea what was going to happen. And the game's tough enough. Don't make it easier for the other team. Coach, don't get me hyped for Jeffrey Simmons. I'll say this, Don. I don't think it's going to be him, but who I did hear about, I do think you'll maybe have some interest. We'll put it that way. All right, Anand, we beat the spread 30-ish to 12. I'll go with that. I'll be Bergs. You'll be at the Tampa game. Can't wait. Go Lions. Yeah, that'll be a good one for you. I think. Yeah, we'll worry about that after this week. I'm not going to look ahead just yet, but I think you'll have a great time there. Jack, Lions by 10. All right, 27-17. Don, Bergs, that's a good game. Yeah, I think I agree. You're going to have a good time there. Man, make sure you get out to some of the tailgating around it. There's usually some good times. If some of my neighbors have some extra tickets, man, maybe I'll even try to put together a Lions Talk Live tailgate. If I do, I'll let you guys know. You guys can stop by. But, yeah, he even makes pizzas. He's got a pizza oven, gets the dough, rolls it out, puts on the sauce, and he's making them left and right for people. And I know the family or group in the spot next to his, yeah, they're cooking all sorts of ribs and stuff like that. So it's a real good time. All right, enough of the jibber jabber. I got to go get a Mountain Dew and get ready for work. You guys all have a great day. If you haven't yet subscribed, please consider doing so. Hit that like button, and we'll see you all later today in the next Lions Talk Live. Take care, all.